In this presentation, we will record transactions related to contributions, dues, and fees into our practice problem for a not-for-profit organization within QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Desktop. Here we are in our practice file. We have our open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view drop down up top and going to the open windows list. We're now going to be opening up the trial balance. We're going to do that by going to the reports drop down. We're going to go to the accounting and taxes, then trial balance. Then I'm going to adjust the dates from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20, January through December of 2020. I'm going to make the font a little bit larger by going to the Customize Reports up top. We're going to go to the Fonts and Numbers tab. We're going to change the font size, or at least I will. You don't need to do this unless you want to do it on your side. And I'm going to say OK. And then yes, and then okay, and now it's a little bit larger. Now we're going to go down to our Excel sheet, and we're going to see what our objective will be. We're still on the recording of revenue, so we're focusing on the cash increase type of things, type of transactions within the organization. We're going to mainly focus on them first, then think about basically other types of transactions, the cash outflows. So now we're on the fund drive and unrestricted gifts. So we're going to say we got money from a fund drive and gifts. So those are going to be forms of contributions. Now we're going to put them all in there as like one lump sum contributions. You can imagine this being a bunch of transactions which would look very similar, which would be that the cash would be increasing and the revenue type of account would be increasing. So you want to think about, this would be possibly multiple transactions that would have this type of format. If we looked at it in terms of just recording this on a trial balance from a journal entry perspective, we can see that the cash would then increase, so cash would go up. So in this case, goes up from here to here. The other side would be a revenue type of account. We're going to put it into contributions without donor restrictions. So we're going to put it into contributions without donor restrictions. That's going to be the credit of the 13,981. So it goes up in the credit direction. That's not a negative number for debits and credits. It's a positive. Well, it's a negative number in Excel, but it's a credit, which means it's an increase in the revenue, which is going to make the kind of net income, or what you would say increase in net position for not-for-profit increase. So that's going to be the type of transaction we want to think of first. Now, when we think about this in terms of the system, however, we want a little bit more detail than that. We want this to happen. We want cash to go up, and we want revenue to go up, but we don't want that to be the only thing that happens. We also want to be able to track that this is going to be going into contributions without restrictions, and we can do that here by having two accounts, and we will, but we can also do it by putting it to two classes, either restricted or unrestricted type of class. So we want that, and we want to be able to give something back to the donors for evidence, preferably a thank you letter, which will indicate how much they have given, so they need that for their records for whatever reason, for taxes or whatever other reason. So if we go back into QuickBooks, how do we do that then? We're going to be creating, once again, our sales receipt. And you can compare this to a for-profit organization. This would be similar to basically us doing work and at the same point in time. So you can imagine someone coming into our office, we do work, we bill them at that same point in time, or they purchase something right up at the cash register, just take it up to the cash register. We need to give them some kind of documentation like a receipt. Obviously, we didn't provide anything possibly at this time, but same kind of idea here. We got paid at this point in time, same point that we kind of would have done the work for. So we're going to make our customer, we're going to say this is I'm going to call it donor 1. And that's going to be the name. You can imagine that being a name. I could probably be more creative than that, but this is going to be the donor. That's the customer's name. And then I'm going to say tab. We're going to set that up. I'm not going to set up all the detail. You probably would want to in real life. You want to know their email address, their phone number. You would like to call them and see if they would like to join, this and that and the other thing, and, donate in the future. But we're just going to record the transaction here. So we're going to do the quick add. We're going to put this into the class, and the class is going to be fundraising. It's unrestricted. We're going to put everything into fundraising here if unrestricted. Then we have the date. I'm going to say this is on the 3rd. We're going to scroll through to the item. So now we're going to need the item, which is going to drive which account it's going to be going to. The only items we have here are grants and contributions that are restricted. We want this contribution to be unrestricted. I'm going to set up a new item right here. Instead of going to the lists and setting it up, I can just set it up here. Now note, as you're filling this out, you don't want normal data input people just to be adding items all the time. So but you can do it once you first add up the items. You would like all the items to be in place, and therefore the collection of money to be very easy for someone to just record without having to set up new items. So we're going to say contributions, and this is going to be unrestricted. Contributions unrestricted. We're going to set up that item, and we're going to put it into our account. We could copy it here. We could say we want to copy that and put that here and paste that here. Then we got to set up an account. It's going to be an income type of account. We have the contributions restricted. I'm going to make an unrestricted one. Now, you could just make one account called contributions and then break it out by class between restricted and unrestricted. I like to be more specific and actually have two accounts because that helps me to really verify the two. If we forget to put the class, for example, then we can go back in there and easily see that this one should be classified as restricted or unrestricted. So I make two accounts there. So I'm going to make another account. I'm going to call it contributions, and I'm just going to do this right in this window rather than go into lists to do it. We're going to say contributions, and this is going to be unrestricted. Tab, set it up. We're going to set that up. I'm going to pull this down so we can see it, and that's going to be it. It's going to be an income type of account. That's all we need. We're going to say save and close, and then OK. So there we have it. Then we'll put the amount, and that amount is for the 13,981. Put that in the rate, 13981. Tab, there we have it. What's this going to do when we record it? It's going to increase the undeposited funds. It's going to then increase our revenue account driven by the item over here, which is contributions without restrictions. So I'm going to say save and close. Yes. Then we'll go to our trial balance, and then we can see that the undeposited funds increased here. We have the contributions unrestricted. New account has increased here. Closing this back out. Other report we want to keep an eye on is going to be the profit and loss by class. Let's take a look at it. We go to the reports drop down. We go to the profit and loss. We want to take a look at the profit and loss by class. Profit and loss by class. Selecting that item, changing the dates up top from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. We then have our profit and loss by class. This is just the income statement type of thing, income type of items, and we could change the name, statement of activities by, but we're going to keep the names for now, and we'll adjust those things later. And so you'll see we have the fundraising, and then we have the total here. And if I was to minimize this, then these are what's included in the unrestricted column. So these are in the unrestricted items. So there's not too much going on here. This will become more filled up or be more useful, a lot more complicated once we get to the expense type items and have more restrictive information in it. So let's go back to the trial balance then. What's the next step? We want to take that undeposited amount and deposit it. So to do that, we can go back to the home page, and we see that we have this one here. We can deposit it. That's going to put it into the checking account. Now, I'm actually going to skip it this time to show that you could accumulate more than one here and then deposit two items at the same time, and we'll discuss why you might want to do that. So then we're going to go back over here and say what the next transaction, the next one is going to say that we have member dues. So we had member dues that are collected. So these are going to be dues that are collected for the not-for-profit. We're going to get cash for them. So I'm going to go up top. I'm going to do the same kind of item up here. I'm going to say that and we're going to say that the cash will be increasing. So I'm going to double click on the cash. I'm going to go to the end of it. We'll say plus. Then we want to pick up that 16,785 and enter. So the cash is increasing. The other side go into a revenue type of account. We want the member dues. So we are in R21 equals the revenue increasing in the credit direction. Again, this is revenue, not an expense. And we're doing this with one kind of transaction. You can imagine this, of course, being multiple transactions that are of the same type. Cash going up, then revenue going up. We will record expenses later. We're focusing on the increase inside the cash going up and the revenue type transactions first. So now let's take a look at QuickBooks. And we want to create that transaction. Similar kind of thing here. We're going to go to the create sales receipt. So we're going to create the sales receipt, and it's called a donation here. Now this is dues. So you could try to have another template or something that would, separate the dues from the donations if you so choose. But the main thing is to be able to track this information. So now we're going to say we've got the dues. So let's just call that member 1. So member 1. Again, I'm going to quick add this. That's going to be the name of the people, the dues. And you can imagine this being multiple people that we could set up this transaction for. It's going to be one transaction. You can imagine, multiple people given dues in a similar kind of transaction here. The class is going to be unrestricted. We're going to put it into fundraising. I'm going to keep the date this time. I'll keep it at the 3rd so that we're going to collect this money as well, then take it to the bank and we'll deposit it at one time. And then we're going to go back to the item. Now I need to set up another item because these items are going to not be going to the correct revenue account. So I'm going to set another item, which is going to be dues, I'm going to call it. Setting it up, I'm going to say it's a service item. We're going to call it dues. And then I'm going to set up another income account down here to record the dues. And we can call it, just call it dues, income, tab, set up the income account. It's going to be an income type of account. I'm going to say save and close and okay. Then what's this going to do? It's going to increase the undeposited funds. The other side go into revenue for the dues. So we're going to say save and close. Yes. Then if we go to the trial balance, we see that we have the increase in the due. I didn't put an amount in it, did I? I don't think I put an amount in it. So let's go back to the home page. If you forget to put an amount in it, then you want to go to the create sales receipt. I'm going to go to the prior one. So there it is, no amount. And then we're going to put the amount of the 16785. So we're going to put the 16785. Now it should do that. So we're going to say save and close. Yes. Yes. Then go back to the trial balance. And we see we have the dues. There's the dues. The other side in undeposited funds. Double clicking on that item, we see that we have those items in undeposited funds. Two things then that need to be deposited. Let's take a look at the next one. If we go back over here, we're going to say is going to be the tuition and fees. So we're going to have a similar kind of transaction here. Now we're going to say another source of revenue is to have tuition. We're going to have a workshop. The workshop is going to be set up for tuition and fees on the workshop. It's how we're going to generate revenue here. So we're providing something this time, and we're going to be generating tuition and fees on it. Similar type of transaction from a general ledger standpoint, cash going up, some type of revenue going up for those tuition and fees that will be received. So if we go back up top, we're going to say, all right, we got back up top. I'm going to say the cash will be increasing, double clicking on the cash plus, and we're going to say that this is going to be an increase to cash, and the other side going to the tuition and fees, which will be a type of revenue account. So there we have that. Now we want to do that. We want to do that in QuickBooks. We also want to be able to provide some type of receipt for the tuition and fees. We would like to be able to provide that. And we would like to be able to break out if possible. Note that when we think about the breaking out by category, what we typically need is to break out that information later on. We'll talk about how to do that. We'll do it with percentages. We typically will be breaking them out for the expenses. But if we could use classes to track the categories of revenue as well, we could do that. So we could say, hey, this is part of education possibly, and put that into that category of revenue as well to group it within the classes. Let's check that out in QuickBooks. So to do that, we're going to go back to the home. So we'll go back home again. And now we're going to create another sales receipt. So we're going to create a sales receipt. And this is going to be assuming people paid us like right at the same time point. And again, it's called donations here. You could have multiple templates. You might want to call a template for the tuition and whatnot that you can use to try to customize how you're gonna provide these, but the functionality of the form will be the same no matter what the look will be like. So you could manage the templates over here and manage the templates. But I'm going to go back to the home page, and we're going to say that we have now tuition. So we're going to say call this, let's say, student 1. And again, you could have multiple students here, so this would be a similar transaction for multiple students that might attend a workshop. We're going to say quick add. We're going to give it into the class. This time, it's still going to be unrestricted, but let's put it into education. Now, again, we really need to break these things out between restricted and unrestricted for the revenue side and break them out in more detail for the expenses for our requirements for reporting. But if we can break out the revenue in a more detailed fashion as well, that could give us more information useful to us. So I'm going to say this one's on the 4th. We're going to go down to the item, and then you'll note that these items, none of these are going to be going to the revenue account we want, which is going to be for the tuition. So we'd like to create another revenue account. So I'm going to call this tuition, another item, tuition and fees. We'll set up that item. It's going to be a service type of item. I'm going to copy this. We're going to put that down below, service type item, and I'll set up the same account title here. It's going to be a tuition and fee account we want to set up. So we're going to add that as we go. Tab. It's going to be set up here. So we're going to set up the account. It's going to be an income type of account. That's what we want. We're going to say save and close, and then OK. So there we have it. The amount then for the tuition and fees will be $7,084. So $7,084 we will put here, 7084. So what's this going to do? Increase undeposited funds, increase the revenue account tuition and fees. Save and close. Yes. Back to the trial balance. Looking at the trial balance, we see we have the tuition and fees down here, 784. And then we have the undeposited funds. We really got to go to the bank. We got a lot to deposit into the bank. So let's do that now. We're going to go back to the home page now, and we're going to go to the deposits. Now we have 3 items there. So if we select that item, we have 3 items that will pop up as being in undeposited funds. If we go to the bank and plan on depositing them all at one time, we want to check all of them off so that the deposit will appear not as 3 separate deposits, but as one deposit of the $37,580. And if we do that, then it'll appear that way on the bank statement. And then if we do that in our books, we can compare them easily to what's in the bank statement. That's really what we want to do. We want to make this as easy as possible when we reconcile. Grouping them in the same fashion will make that easier. Now, you might say, hey, there's only 3 transactions. I could figure it out. Yes, we could. However, if you have a lot of small transactions, it gets kind of messy. And so you'd rather just make it as easy as possible. Try to group your deposits in the same format that you'll see them on the bank statement. Make the reconciliation process easy. So we're going to say save and close, and we're going to say yes. And then we're going to go to the trial balance and see what happened there. Undeposited funds now has gone down, and we see the checking account has gone up. In the checking account, we see that one item, which represents those three receipt payments. And in the undeposited funds, we'll see the detail of them. So we'll see them not as, you see the deposit down here. We have 3 deposit screens because it's showing the detail of the items here so that we can match out. There's the 13 sales receipt. There's the deposit that happened all in the same time on 1/4. So then we're going to close this back out. Let's take a look at the profit and loss by class in the open windows. Profit and loss by class. Now we have the education program here where we put the tuition and fees. We've got the total programs and then the fundraising. Now, if I was to minimize this, then we get our nice little just unrestricted column, and we can compare that against the restricted items if we were to have any, right? And that's the major breakout we need to have. Then we can provide them more detail by maximizing this and seeing the education and then the fundraising. So this will give us a lot more detail. This will be a lot more detailed report once we get to the expense side of things.